Um, so what I'd there's so much meat to these topics. That's why one of the big reasons why Andrew and I have been so excited yeah, so excited to sit down with you, Joel. I feel like we could talk for hours. I know later on we're going to unbox kind of the creator economy, so to speak, and untap that. But I want to talk about you for a sec. Kind of you, what you do. You were in the corporate world. You did that. You branched out. I'd love for you to speak to the recruiters out there. What options are on the table for them if they want to, follow your footsteps? If they want to say, "Hey, corporate America, that's great. Respect it, but not for me."
Yep.
I want to venture out and I want to become independent. Maybe that's fractional. Maybe that's independent. Maybe that's consulting. But what options are out there for recruiters who think this ain't for me? I like what Joel does. How do I get into that?
Yeah, I think the first thing you do is you start to build like an audience somewhere of ideally people who are going to buy what you're selling, right? So if that's the first thing you need to do. So you need to, identify who is it that would be an ideal client, and obviously that's based on first of all knowing what service and having an offer together.
Right.
I think honestly a great starting point for people is just if you're a recruiter, and this was a lesson learned from someone called Craig Fisher. I don't know if you guys follow Craig Fisher, kind of a legend, but he said just open up an LLC, get a business started, because the way that the recruiting industry is, it's ebb and flow. So if you're ever in a time where you're laid off or you're not working, it's good to have a business account, right? Because then you can start accepting money in.
Right.
And obviously, the longer you grow your business, or the longer you have that business account open, um, the more money that's going to pass through it, and there's tax benefits even if you're employed. So that's the number one: open up the business. And then the second thing is, I think this is a big struggle for most people, putting together an offer. So just understanding, like, what are you going to offer? Because if you don't have an offer, then you can't sell anything. And I think with recruiting, with the recruitment function, there's hourly services you could provide. So you could literally rent yourself out on like a contract basis. It's not really a contract recruiter. You could
More
position it
fractional.
differently. Yeah, fractional is something popular, right? So not 40 hours, 20 hours a week. Then
Right.
you've got retainer options. You've got obviously like the good old contingent options. But I'm a big fan of varying it up and having some money that's recurring, and then other money that's a little bit riskier that may or may not come in. Um,
Mm.
and I think one of the things that I found, and I'm working through this journey, is just figuring out, okay, there's lots of potential income streams, especially with just online work. And once you have an audience, what is going to work out best? What makes the most sense? And that's a little bit of a learning process. What do I enjoy doing? So that's the recruiting side, like in helping businesses. And
Yeah.
then you have the candidate side, where potentially you're a resume writer, potentially you're a career coach, whole different end of the business, whole different offering. Um, but once you've decided which direction you're going to go
Yeah.
into, then you can start building an audience. You can start just creating content around the problems that you solve. And then obviously just looking and doing research for people that you could potentially help or work for. So work with.
How do you how do you think, follow up question to that, how do you think it's going to impact just the whole game industry that is recruitment? Like if you think about it, um, especially with the creator economy, social media, the ease of access that everyone has to internet now, like you're going to have a ton more, and with the kind of the economy and how it's been going, you're going to have a lot more fractional people. You're going to have people breaking out and doing what you're doing and becoming more independent. Do you think that's going to impact how people perceive, maybe in a more positive way or a negative way? Like recruitment doesn't just have to be 5 or 6 sources and recruiters internally in-house.
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to impact the whole industry?
Yeah, look, I think it's just leaner teams, right? And figuring out how to run more efficiently. And I think over the last 2 to 3 years, particularly in tech, just these tech teams are just getting huge, right? Because they have funding, they have the money and the
Yes.
resources. So you're building a massive internal team. And I think if you're a
And
talent
then they
leader
get
and
let
you're
go.
looking exactly, so it's like you're always gonna want to have a core leader and a small lean team, because I do think that from a recruiting perspective, if you're working for the company and you truly are behind a mission, you will communicate that better than any agency ever will, because you have more at stake, right? Particularly if you're a startup and you're building with the founder and you're building that
Yep.
team, you've got more at stake than the agency recruiter. I think internal is a really important thing to have. You need someone that can manage hiring managers, that can build those relationships, that can build that trust and that respect. But I think where teams may have, faltered is just growing too big internally because they're afraid of the fees that come from agency. And I think
Exactly.
if you're viewing it as a fee as opposed to like an operating cost, and you're not selling it to leadership as like, hey, we actually need this to prevent layoffs, to prevent these people being burned out and retention on our team. And I think too now, obviously more and more recruiting companies are, particularly with the area of sourcing. This is where I see AI affecting things right now, is in sourcing. Like people are really looking at sourcing, and that's a potential area that could be outsourced by AI or some sort of thing. So you got that. So you got technology play, and then you also have like outsourcing. I saw as a lot of these talent teams were getting bigger, a lot of them were outsourcing screenings or recruiter calls to South America. A lot of people always think of like India as like the outsourcing place, but South America is, can be a pretty good replacement. So I think we're going to see more and more of that. And so then as recruiters, as people who are professionals, then it gives you options. I can work fractionally with a company. I can have a couple of clients. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time, and I think we'll just continue to see this shift as well. I doubt that. I can't see as like building as big of talent teams as we did over the last couple of years. Like it's hard for me to think that would happen